Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Habitat Update, the podcast about entrepreneurship and Japan, based in and focusing on the Kansai area with the cities of Osaka, Kyoto, and Kobe, and so on. The podcast goes live every 2 weeks on iTunes and SoundCloud as an audio-only version and as a video version on YouTube. On SoundCloud and iTunes, I only have 4 episodes more or less online at the same time because of the storage limitation. I'm using the free version of SoundCloud as a host. So if you don't want to miss anything, just go there, download the episodes and have them on your device of choice. This is episode 8. My name is Tugi, and with me once more, Sabrina. Sabrina, you are back. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Thank you for inviting me for the 8th edition of the podcast. I'm really happy.
8th edition.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you?
Great. I'm happy that today we have the podcast going on here at Kyoto Makers Garage.
Oh yeah. We are back at Kyoto Makers Garage. Last time we were here at Kyoto Makers Garage already with Joanna. Joanna, unfortunately, is back again in Ecuador, yeah. I think, or has she been traveling?
Yeah, she's back home to take care of her business.
Okay, that was at least, it was very interesting to have her here, and all the best to her. I hope to see her again, and she said she will be coming back. How have you been? You haven't been now on the podcast those 4 weeks now?
Yeah, a lot going on around, and with the new makerspace, we have different activities going on, which is great. Lots of challenges. And I think that on a daily basis, it's the real startup challenges that we are facing here with a new space.
Let's go into this thing of the daily tasks and a lot going on, and jump into the recent events we have visited and we've been or hosted. And I haven't been to too many events actually. One of them was the Global Venture Habitat GVH meetup. We called it Bridging Japan, Singapore, and the rest of Asia, because the speaker was Tom from Singapore. He used to live and work in Kyoto and in Osaka, and has now like a consultancy in Singapore, supporting Japanese companies and entrepreneurs and everyone coming to Singapore, wanting to do business there, and also a little bit in the other areas of Asia. That was very interesting, and actually saw many new faces. Seems like the word Singapore attracts people.
Yeah, definitely. Singapore is a hub that Japanese are very interested to learn about, and I see the Singaporean very open. They see the value of what they can offer to Japan. At the same time, they can learn from traditional industries like craftsmanship, and that's something that I got from Tom's his speech during the event, yeah. Right?
But real quick, just to mention, his company is called Wasabi Creation. I actually wanted to ask him why he called it Wasabi Creation, but next time then. As I said, that was a very interesting speech actually. He held it, due to the fact that we had mostly Japanese audience, he held it in Japanese, but he had his slides and everything, and his homepage is in English, so go check it out. That's very interesting. Then after that, we haven't been to anything, except for yesterday. We had in here the Monozukuri Hub meetup, an next edition. It was called The Key Role of Startups Solving Real Problems. Now that's interesting, right? So how did that develop? How did you...
We see a lot of in Japan, the late trends of hardware startups try to solve real problems. I would say the first and the second generations were more about testing and trying with 3D printers and physical gadgets or like wearables, and that's already that was a good start, a great start. But now we see the startups and IoT companies are doing more towards medical care or different appliance or use cases for those new technologies. So yesterday we invited 2 startups from Tokyo. The first one was Autumn Glass. They are developing glass with some specific AI intelligence that can support dyslexic or even people who have any kind of issue reading. So it actually transcripts the text into a voice. So then it also can be done in the case of a person who cannot see, and then he showed a demo during the event that it was from Japanese to English, and from English to Japanese. It can also be done. But the main use case that they're trying to do is actually for medical care for impaired people who cannot see.
That's very interesting. I saw them first time. It was the DMM Akiba Global Challenge, I guess it was called. That was a couple months, 5-6 months ago. No,
they still have
summer.
the Open Challenge. Yeah,
and they still have this challenge. It's ongoing, and they have like demo days which everyone can attend. So check it out if you're in Tokyo. Just go. It's very, very cool. Like you have actually startups working on all these sorts of topics, actually trying to solve issues and not just coming up with a nice like a consumer product.
Yeah, DMM Akiba, right? Yeah. That's what you mean, the Akihabara.
Akihabara, yeah. It's called DMM Akiba. DMM make Akiba.
Yes, exactly.
I'll put the link in there somewhere.
Great.
Here or on the video somewhere. Check it out. Yeah, I saw them there first time. It was like still very early on. He had like an initial, first prototype.
3D printed,
very simple, and I was like, oh wow, this is interesting. This could go somewhere. And then I see now, his product didn't advance much more, though maybe on the software side, but he already has a plan, he has an idea, and they want to launch, I guess, within a year, right?
I think the most important since the beginning, they came with one specific experience. They identified the problem, and they start trying to solve this problem. Getting in touch with real final users. So they develop a small community of people who are either impaired or are dyslexic or have some really visual problems to test their product and get real feedbacks. And that they realize that after dealing with real users, they noticed that the product was way more than they expected. So until that point that they can get this empathy with the users, and it's easier for a startup to develop, to connect, and solve a real problem. So I think in that sense, I also met them a couple of times before, and I see business-wise, they have improved a lot. I think their presentation skills have been shaped, and that's the way to be. That's great to see. We miss hardware startups that are really like competitive in terms of business and pitch skills. So good job, Autoglass, keep working like that. And we believe that there should be more hardware startups trying to achieve that kind of business and pitch skills that they did now.
They do, and they expanded. Like the team has now, like the presentation was fully in English, right? And that's one thing very crucial, very important, especially if you want to go global. And with this product anyway. And I like to see that they were talking like while they are targeting like to solve issues with like people having difficulties to read, they want to help them, but they also keep discovering with testing groups that they say, hey, I could use that actually in my daily life just to read like signs or to translate stuff. And that makes the link to the other company with eSkin, Shenoma.
Yeah, Shenoma.
They were here too, right? It's also a Tokyo startup, very well known actually, more so out of Japan. It's basically, well, I don't want to call it, it's not a wearable, it's a, how does it call it? It's basically a shirt with
smart fabric,
so you can measure your movements and like acceleration and so on. And whereas it seems very like close to say, oh, you could use this for gaming, virtual reality and all that stuff. The CEO himself, like he keeps discovering new niche applications, like, and I talked to him, he was like at the moment trying to adapt for new markets, like for instance they produced one version for babies, to monitor babies, another version working on like daycare institution organizations, where you put it on basically on elderly just to monitor them, to monitor their heart rates, to monitor where they are and how they move and so on. So you start off with something and then you keep discovering new areas as well. And
which is great. I think that you have to be aware of the possibilities, but again, either startup, some startups in Japan still have this large corporation mindset.
Oh no,
so
definitely.
they open too many fronts and they don't focus their use. So then I think the most important for a startup, focus on one use case and make it great. And then from that on, you can develop to the next step, especially concerning fundraising. That's why most of startups struggle fundraising.
Yes, I agree. No, like as a startup, focus on one thing. What's the one thing your product can do, should do, and have a very specific target audience. Like it has to be very niche in some ways. Like you cannot target the whole world. You will never succeed with that.
Yeah, and that's one thing in Japan that I really, especially when I talk to engineers, there are so many possibilities. They are always saying, oh, it can be used for babies and for elderly, and then you say, well, but then those are totally different use cases. You cannot say this is the product will be the same. So then it's still something that entrepreneurs in Japan are struggling to
not
focus.
Just in Japan, it's
in general.
It's an issue in general. People just want to have everything with their product, right? So go out with that. But then to see the contrast as well, like Oton Glass is very early on, so they have to focus. They might discover opportunities, but they have to focus on one area. And whereas Shenoma is already, as I said, further ahead, they are already on the market. They are in the States, in Europe, and so on. So they have the expertise already, and they have the product, and now they can start going left and right and see where it might be.
They have the product, but they didn't really reach retail. So their first product,
but not. Doesn't have to be.
So that's one thing that is very clear for hardware startups. You cannot just say, "Oh, I finished the product development, so my project is ready. So let's skip to the other one." They still have to manage the sales, and that's when the problems just start.
True. You have to make money as much as you want to help humanity.
Now the investors probably want their money back, the return of investment. So.
At some point they do. So, okay, talking about investors. That leads me to the question one of the students asked me yesterday at the event. We were talking and he was very curious, and then at one point he said, so what do you think, when is the right moment to pitch to investors? And this is actually not such an easy question to answer, and it really depends in general, like why. I would start with the question, do you have to pitch to investors? I mean, it is the common thing you hear about, like, oh, you have to pitch, you have to get money from investors, this and that. Fact is, though, that about maybe 80% of all startups are self-funded.
You mean in the very early stages, right?
In later stages, yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can always, if you start making revenues and you can lift yourself up, and then you never need investments. It really depends. It's just the hype at the moment, like making the big money, right? Investments, valuation and everything, and that's what you see in TV. That's the hunt for the unicorns. But that's the first question you have to ask yourself: do I really need to pitch to investors like for money?
I think most of the entrepreneurs I meet, they have great ideas. Sometimes they have the technology and they can make it work, but they don't have any money to start.
That's the point. Like if you have no money, you have no other option.
More than just money, what they would like to get from investors is some mentorship, some connections, and in that sense, it depends on the industry you're getting into. Because what I've noticed, as an example, in the smart apparel industry or the smart fabric we spoke about, Japan has many things going on in terms of R&D that is not known out of Japan. And some of the startups that might be interested to come here, they don't even know what's going on. So then how do you know unless you have a mentor or an angel or someone who's involved in that industry to tell you?
True. So then let's switch to the other side. So you go invest. So when is the right time to invest? And then I would say it really depends who you are pitch. When is the right time to pitch to investors? And then it really depends on the investor, right? Investors are people too. They have their own preferences. They have their own approach to everything. And even like within the same venture capital company, the different partners, the different investors have different approaches. How they do business, how they track startups, or not at all. They wait for the startups to come to them. Right, and
I've heard all kinds of things. I heard from one of the speakers from yesterday meetup, Taira-san, who's a Japanese based in the Silicon Valley. He's been there for over 20 years. He mentioned that he doesn't look for startups. Startups knock on his door,
Yeah.
or through introductions with their network, and that's how he does it. He doesn't look for startups. So some of them say, yeah, well, I'm the opposite. I'm the one who gets to choose who I want to talk to. Even to pitch, some of the investors are very selective. It depends, first of all, where they are based, and what kind of industry they are, and how famous they also are.
Yeah. Well, do you go after that as a startup? Oh, I want to be invested by the most famous one? I don't think so.
I do in Japan.
I mean, it can help you, especially in Japan. The higher your status is, the more connections you have, the more people respect that person, and the easier it might be then to get to other people.
Well, what Tyler-san told me yesterday is that most Japanese go to Silicon Valley and want Tyler-san to connect to the main names in the Silicon Valley. I mean, what is the reason for those well-succeeded businessmen to want to meet them? And that's something it's very unique, but at the same time, if you know it's guarantee, of course.
Yeah.
Sometimes entrepreneurs who get things done, they take the risk. And that's Masayoshi-san, he did it, right?
Yeah,
he wanted to meet the president of McDonald's Japan. Back in the time he was a high school student. He spent a lot of time and money and efforts, and he managed to do it. And for him, that was a great achievement. And that's sometimes the kind of motivation that startups need.
That's actually interesting thing you said, like be persistent, right? Investors are usually very busy people. They get flooded by emails. They have to go to these events, to that event. They have meetings. They have to discuss many topics, right? So they might easily ignore or not see your email, or just kind of like walk by you or stop the conversation because they are not so interested. You're just taking his time.
Well, you have to take the risk.
You have to take the risk. Be persistent. Come back again. Like, not annoyingly, but in a right, I would say, periodic time frame.
I think you have to have some content to show to investors.
That's something else then as well. Like, don't just go randomly pitch. I saw that too. I met a couple people here. They had their startups and they were like, have everything, right? Like, oh, we have the logo, this and that. We're trying to do this. And then I asked, like, so what are you actually doing? What's your pitch? So I'm here. You have 1 minute. Tell me what it is. So, we have this thing, and then it's going to be this, like, doing that, and then maybe we can do and here, and like totally lost. I'm like, so what are you doing? So he couldn't tell me, and I wasn't offering him money at all. I was just trying to give him advice, right? So if someone wants to partner up with you to kind of like venture out and make money, then you lose him within the first sentence. No, be clear about what your product, what your startup is about. Like, what is it? What does it do? What kind of like pains of customers do you address, and how do you solve their issues? And maybe as well be informed about the market. Like, do your homework, right? Like, be informed about the market and how you approach things, and
what's so unique about you that the others don't have.
What's so unique about you?
Yeah, and in certain industries, I would say there are too many startups, and you've seen probably many pitch decks that sound very similar, or the whole solution sounds very similar. What would differentiate them? It's sometimes the business model, but mainly for hardware or the things I've been working with, technology. Do they own the patents? Is it actually unique? And if it's unique, how are those patents like?
Yeah.
And that can actually guarantee or not their next steps. But again, I think there's a lot of luck in this whole thing. It's persistence with luck, and also
practice as well.
And also something to show that makes sense, because I see, especially for hardware, investors want to see some prototype. Unless you go to, come to Kyoto Maker's Garage, use the machines, 3D printer, laser cutter, CNC, do something physical that can improve your concept. For hardware, not ideas don't do anything. So many people contact us to try to sell licenses or ideas or patents, and it's like, patents, it's something good, but it's just the beginning. That doesn't make you a startup if you have over 100 of patents. If you're not doing anything out of it, it's not a hardware product.
You just have the patents and then you don't know what to do out of it. So what kind of entrepreneur are you?
Yeah. So there are many. I think the most of the when the question is when should I pitch to investors? Like, okay, what do you want to pitch to investors,
Yes.
and what kind of investors are you looking for?
Yes.
And why should those investors be interested in your startup?
Yes. And as you said, like, yeah, these days it's much more important to actually already have maybe a working prototype.
For software startups, there are no excuse
Or
not
like
to have anything.
And software startups especially, like a minimal viable product, because these days compared to maybe like the 90s, everything is so much more accessible. You can just make things like without money, right?
You can make in a couple of hours, use a free
Yes.
software or anything.
That was difficult back in time. You needed actually money to start doing something.
Yeah.
And these days, so the investments begin much later, at a later stage.
You can make some sketch,
Yeah.
do your sketch and show your idea. Do something different. And with the amount of entrepreneurs in the world, I think it's getting more and more competitive, and it's hard to prove that you are really unique.
You go under
as a startup.
too many.
Yeah.
You go under in the masses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Yeah, one thing I mentioned, like you don't have to only pitch to investors, right? Pitch to everyone. Pitch to family. Pitch to friends. Just practice that skill. It has to be like just come right out on spot. And you look at me like, did I say something wrong?
No.
That's true, right? And then go to Google. Like if you type in, I just tried it, like when to pitch, how to pitch, then you see like pages and pages of like, oh, the 5 mistakes everyone does, the 10 things your pitch should have, whatever. And like, while these sound sometimes random, they are true. Most of the points they mentioned there are true, and just work on that.
I don't believe in any kind of recipes for success.
No, there's no recipe, but like these articles are based on something. So just compare and like see what points come up over and over again. Like one of the points is like you see highly ranked usually, oh, have a story to tell. Don't just show a product, but make the connection. So how did you came up with this idea? Like, is it a personal story, or can you relate it to just relate it to emotions in general, like solving a human problem? Emotions is the one thing you get everyone. Have something behind it, no, of course, but have a story to tell, and do your homework and like be prepared for anything. Me personally, I like when people approach me maybe not too late, like when they are too focused on one thing and you cannot help them, or you cannot advise them to say like, oh, maybe you should go this way because this makes no sense, because then they're already made up their minds and maybe they don't see certain things. So if they come in the beginning, you can tell, you can give them some mentorship, some advice, say like, maybe this is, and look there, I have read this, so maybe I would try to adjust this, and then you can follow up. You see, oh, do they actually take you serious, or like, do they do their job? And then you also see over the months, how dedicated are these people, like, are they worth investing in? Like, then you can follow them up, right? Instead of just one meeting and just see, oh, this product, I trust you. Oh, I don't know. I'm talking a lot. Want to move on? Anything to say about that?
Totally agree.
Anyhow, if you out there, listeners, viewers, have any experiences with pitching, if you disagree with what we say, just let us know. Write us, comment below in the comment sections of the different platforms, and send us emails or hit us up on Twitter, right? Let's move on. We had the past events. We had a long talk now about when to pitch to investors and upcoming events. And I prepared a list here. I'm mainly focusing on first of all, the next 2-3 weeks, because then we have a next podcast and we need content then as well, right? So I don't look into the future too far. And then again, also a little bit focusing on English-speaking events, because that's what I'm attending to, and that because I think entrepreneurship and startup and global mindset should start with English. It's just for me, it's a prerequisite. Can you say that? Is that a word? Did I just made it up?
No, it's that one.
A requirement. Anyhow, first I want to mention November 18th, this Saturday, Kyoto Drink and Draw. Now you might say, oh, this is about entrepreneurship. Why Kyoto Drink and Draw? Well, first of all, it's a meetup of creatives. Creativity is the asset you have as an entrepreneur. You go there, and also they kind of like brainstorm, they draw together, they drink together, they have fun. And the drawing aspect, I think it's also very interesting, because then you go there, and even if you don't think you can draw, you might try, and then you might maybe even discover that you are not that bad at all, and one leads to the other, and you're the next famous artist, you know what I mean? Anyhow, Kyoto Drink and Draw, November 18th, Saturday at Material Kyoto. And then we have November 20th on Monday, opportunities for the youth to step up, entrepreneurship in Kansai, a next Global Venture Habitat Osaka meetup, GVH meetup with Alan Miner, the founder and CEO of Sunbridge. He'll be there, and he'll talk about this topic I just mentioned. The event will be at GVH5, is in Umeda in Osaka, and well, see you there. Okay, next event, working in Japan, a reality check with employers and employees. It's by the Compass Career Directions in Osaka group. Unfortunately, also on November 20th, on Monday, at the same time as our event, it'll be at the Osaka Innovation Hub. More or less same location, right, in Umeda. And well, it's a bit unfortunate, but the topics are not identical, so I think both groups find their targets. And in any case, we'll stream the event.
So what's the topic of the second one?
It's about, you don't listen to me. Working in Japan, a reality check with employees and employers. So they will basically have talks from bigger companies around here, and panel discussions with people who have been employed, not people, foreigners specifically employed.
So
in
would
Japan.
be like a job hunting for foreigners looking to work for another
Yes,
corporation.
that's the goal. The goal of the Compass group is to connect foreigners with companies here.
Okay.
Then November 22nd, Wednesday, we have Ichi Pixel meetup. It's the Osaka Game Developers meetup. It will be in Osaka. Never been there, but I might check it out one day. November 24th, Friday, we have an event called Let's Eat and Donate. It's the Gochiso Lounge event. Gochiso is a local startup, co-founded by a foreigner, a good friend of us, Philip. I'm actually working on a next Habitat Update Plus video with him, so stay tuned for that. I hope to put it online in the next 1-2 weeks. Gochiso Lounge event. It will be in a restaurant, Safran, in Umeda, in Osaka.
It's a dinner event, right?
It's a dinner event, yeah. Very nice place, and you should check it out. They have already like maybe 20 to 30 sign-ups, space up to 50 people, and they have some surprises planned. You should go there, yeah. Same day, November 24th, Friday, also in Osaka, the Hacker News Kansai meetup. Hacker News Kansai, the monthly meetup in Osaka, Kyoto, and Kobe. I think we don't have to say too much about that. Check it out. Cool people, interesting topics, sometimes too hardcore for me, but well.
That's what startups need. We need people like hardcore to make the difference.
Okay. Worth mentioning here, Hacker News Kansai, also always the HN Kansai Scrapbox. I'll blend in the link. The wiki for everything, I would say, entrepreneurship.
It's a wiki, like a Wikipedia?
In Kansai.
In Kansai.
The focus is on the area, right? I mean, there's Wikipedia, you have so much material. We focus on the Kansai
So
area.
then you go to this link, you can get a lot of information about local people, local places,
Yes.
and startups and things that are going on in the ecosystem.
Meetups. Yeah.
And it's all in English, so the idea is to have more people aware of what's going on in Kansai.
Exactly. And with that, more or less running out. One more thing I can always mention is, mark the date for Hakosaka 2018. It's going to be in February, end of February.
Yeah.
And you actually, you haven't announced, you'll have a part event in there too, no?
Monozukuri Hardware Cup.
Yes.
It's a startup competition for hardware startups, and it's going to be at the same time at Hack Osaka. And we will soon launch the application, so if you have a hardware project, would like to check it, we'll put a link here.
Have you announced it before, no?
It's gonna be tomorrow.
So, well, this will be up tomorrow. So, hey, it's a first, huh? I feel
Oh my
proud.
god,
Oh
we
my
have
God.
we have news. I have news. We have this amazing competition, and the Japanese first thing it's all in English, and we are gonna have international judges, and the finalists, the 3 top ones, get the chance to join the international competition in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And over there, the rules are different. So then we're really like trying to push it hard and show how hard hardware really is.
Yes, and that was part, also that you had it similar way this year already, Hakosaka in February, March.
Yeah.
This is the next step, and it's gonna be bigger and better and everything, right?
Hopefully more startups, more competitive. And then next year we'll hear more about Japanese startups getting to know cool investors and a really great atmosphere that it is Pittsburgh.
Great, thank you. So that's it with the upcoming events for the next 2 weeks. If you out there, listener, I mean, we can check and scan only so much, right? So I'm sure we are missing out certain events, or I'm just not mentioning some of them. If you out there listen to this and think, oh, hey, I've been to this super cool event, you should mention it. You should have it in there. Or, hey, I'm doing my own events. Why don't you feature them here? Well, I'm sorry if I don't. Just let me know. Write us an email, send me a text, send me a tweet, and I'll include it in the next episode in 2 weeks. With that, I'm coming slowly to the end. No feedback today from the Habitat, no Habitat Echo.
Echo. The echo is empty today.
But nevertheless, I'm happy to be here, happy to inform.
I want to invite any of the listeners and viewers to come here, check Kyoto Makers Garage. If you're a student,
Yes.
it's a free of charge, not only the co-working spaces, but also the 3D printing, the machine makerspace. And if you're a professional or you're no longer a student, we are very accessible. We can put the link here. You can check it out. Come check it. Bring your friends. And it's supposed to be a hub for entrepreneurs and startups to come and learn from each other.
Yes. And as you see, it's a really nice atmosphere here. A little bit cold, but it's winter. If you want to reach out now, we say it all the time. If you want to reach out to us, and just for the listeners only out there, to the audio only version, you can reach us through the mail HabitatUpdate@gmail.com. You can reach me either on Facebook with my name, or then on Twitter with @Guenest, which is Guenest. Or you can reach out to Sabrina at Makers Bootcamp with the tag @MakersBootcamp.
Makersboot.camp.
No, I mean the Twitter handle.
Oh yeah, sorry.
@MakersBootcamp, and the homepage is makersboot.camp.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
Nothing .com, .japan, whatever, dot. Let's set a dot for this podcast here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Habitat Update episode 8, the podcast about entrepreneurship and Japan, based in and focusing on the Kansai area of Japan. Going live every 2 weeks as an audio-only version on SoundCloud and iTunes, and as a video version on YouTube. Check it out, subscribe, follow us. Thank you very much, Sabrina.
Thank you, Tugi. Hope to see you all again pretty soon.
Yes, we will.